the first thing that's got to happen, which is that, as you said, it's that kind of often end of Q4 ahead of the new year, is we have to do that work of definition, which is what we've talked kind of quite well about, which is we've got to go through the process of defining the work that matters. So that's strategy getting translated into work. Strategy is not definition of work, it's a definition normally of how we think we're going to win. We've got to translate that into what does that mean for what people actually do with explicit trade-offs and clear success. Like that's a prerequisite. It's an element of a system that just gets us to the starting line. We've then got to make sure all of that work has single points of accountability. So we've got to assign whether or not they're big cross-functional programs of work, whether or not they're outcomes, that every single piece of that work has got clearly defined single owners, clear decision rights, and owners that are ultimately responsible for the final outcome. The next bit, which I think is the bit which often gets missed. I think a lot of companies sometimes get as far as number two. I think it's the third bit that I often find is a bit more challenging, which is what I'm calling cadence. That's how frequently and how much structure are we putting around the cadence where leaders are giving attention to progress. So what's the mechanism by which we're driving progress? There needs to be one. And so that's about that regular review, ongoing prioritization or reprioritization, and where the dependencies between different cross-functional work streams get resolved. We need a repeated review for the work, whether or not that's at a deliverable level or at a program level. It needs kind of regular review. Visibility becomes another really important building block, and that is about building a shared understanding of reality. So, as a leader, can you see current status for all of the most important work that's going on inside the organization? Often we end up just looking at lagging indicators, a set of numbers. Arguably, all of this work that we're describing is the leading inputs that are going to drive those lagging indicators. So can we see the status of the work? Have we got a shared view of it? Are we tracking against deliverables? Are we seeing where the risks are relative to completion? And are we identifying where the right support is required? And then the final element is that ongoing learning. So when you've got good review process, you learn a lot about what needs to be improved in ways of working. So good, transparent, visible accountability and review meetings normally expose where there are challenges or friction. That gives us a really good opportunity to learn, to improve the system, potentially even do some improvement with our leaders, because it shines a light and exposes that. So learning becomes a really important part of it, which potentially then just feeds back into how we go about setting direction. So that's a kind of 20,000 feet view. I feel like we've talked quite a bit about the first two buckets, Paul. I'd love to focus in on the cadence element, because I think that's the bit where we often get a bit more friction. And it's one of those things that's a bit hard. I'd love you perhaps to talk a bit about what you've been doing at Aptitude, and kind of what's been positive about that. What have been the challenges? So maybe what are we doing, and also
Yeah.
what's that exposed?
Yeah. So what are we doing? We have basically what we've set up. I talked about our OKR framework. So we've established a set of key results that are important to us for 2026, a core set of 4 objectives that we are trying to achieve. And then we've basically supplemented that with a set of programs and initiatives. So the work that we know we need to do to actually achieve those objectives and key results. Across those programs of work, we've put in a cadence. So we've got program squads, we're calling them, kind of made up of initiative owners and people who are owning the work that is in there. And those teams are getting together on a monthly basis. It is not a status call. So I think that's one differentiation here. I am joining these and kind of making sure that things are going on, but setting up not only the right cadence, but kind of the content of
Yeah.
those meetings and everything. It has shifted me, at least, from reactive escalation to more proactive intervention. So the teams are not coming to the call to report a status to me that I can read on, a status board that we've set up. It's more, okay, what's been done? Great. Where are we at? What are we working on right now? And what do we need to be doing? What sort of blockers are we running into? And it's solving for them right on the call, sort of
Yeah.
attacking what we're doing from a blocker perspective, and then also sorting out if we've got bandwidth issues, and then reprioritizing what comes next. Because I talked about, right, things change. We're now in April, and what we thought in December has changed, right? When we get new information, reserve your right to change your mind, et cetera. So using that cadence to really make sure that we're not necessarily, again, reviewing status, but working on what's coming has been a big help.
Yeah.
I think, historically, status meetings for us had been just that. And I've come from a background of professional services where, we still have to do this with clients and things. And, here's your weekly status reports, and like, oh, this is red. And it's just like, at that point in time, red projects are already red. So status reviews, in my mind, have always been a waste of time. I think you need to be working on the present and planning for the future. Certainly learn from the past, but stop reacting to it.